Okay, I'll go back to last week, talk a little bit about the budget before we get started. What do we do with overtime? Yeah, I know so much on salary, but what do we do with overtime? And what do we do with, bonuses? And what do we do with income tax refunds?
What's that?
And, I know some people don't ever get them, but, you know, they're not something that we put in our budget necessarily, because we're not for sure we're gonna get that. We wanna develop our budget on a 40-hour week, or, what we get on Social Security, or pensions, you know, something that's steady. But now bonuses is not steady, income tax, if you're gonna have paid, you better have it in your budget in the opposite way. But if you're gonna get a refund, then use it, you know, for other things. And also, why it's not a dependable source. Bonuses, income tax, overtime, it's not dependable. So we need something that we can really depend on in our budget, and that's our salary, or Social Security check, or pension checks. That's dependable. But the other money's not dependable, so what do we do with it? It's great to build a emergency fund with, if you get it. So I always keep that in mind. If we put it in our emergency fund, then it, you know, it's a great way to increase your emergency fund or start an emergency fund. And on emergency fund, what we want to do, we want to have a goal. Our first goal on emergency fund. Say you might want to set it a week, you might want to set it a month. And after we get that in our emergency fund, then we'll set another goal. You know, double it, 2 months. Then another 3 months. I like the 3 months emergency fund. The other money after that, say if I have over 3 months, I'll usually put in would put in a CD, or I would invest it, you know, make more money. But everybody's different. You might want 6 months emergency fund, or you might want a year's emergency fund. You know, and we never know what's, you know, that unexpected come along. We never know when it's coming. Okay. So you get to 1,000 and you want to, say you got it in your savings account or your emergency fund, however that you start, and the amount that you want in your emergency fund, you have set that. You know what you want in your emergency fund. It can vary with each individual. Yeah, I recommend at least 3 to 6 months in your emergency fund, because you just never know. We never know when something unexpected is going to happen. I'd rather use my emergency fund instead of going in debt. And going in debt. Going in debt is not good, because you have to pay interest most of the time on your debt, so it's not good. But if you got an emergency fund, you got that money. So say your engine or transmission goes out on your car, that's $2,000 to $3,000 repair right off the top. Maybe a little more depending on your car. And if you don't have an emergency fund, you're gonna have to go in debt to get it. That's, you know, that's what you don't want. You know, Paul, your transmission goes out, what are you gonna have to do? You want to shell out some cash.
Either shell out some cash or go in debt and trade and get another one.
One or the other. You know?
So anyway you go, you're gonna be in debt.
Yeah.
If you trade it off and get another one.
Yeah. But if you've got an emergency fund, you say you've got $10,000 in your emergency fund. That's great for a down payment on a car or to repair it.
Yeah.
If you got it, you don't have to go in debt. You might get sick.
Runs as good as mine.
You might get sick. Some sickness, you know, just a common flu, you're looking what, a week to 2 weeks out of work. That's what an emergency fund's for. Fund you while you're not, you know, you're not able to work or something. You might break an arm. And in most cases, you're not gonna be able to work. You know, if you're on a public job out there and you break an arm or leg, you're not gonna be able to work. So, of course, as retired people, it's a little different, but you're not gonna be able to work, so you're gonna have something to pay your bills. And that's the only way to get, be prepared for the unexpected. Always be prepared. Can't stress that enough, to be prepared for it. And that's exactly what an emergency fund is. As Pastor says, it's an insurance policy. And it actually is an insurance policy. It's an insurance policy that you'll have funds to pay for the unexpected. So how do we fund an emergency fund?
Overtimes, anything like that, yeah, overtime pays. Anything like that, over your regular payday, anything over your regular payday.
Little at a time. We don't have to,
Exactly.
it's best, the quicker you can get it, the better off you are, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's inch by inch. That's the only way you can do it, just a little at a time, inch by inch, and to build up the fund. Now, tell me some of your ideals about building an emergency fund. Yvonne? What's some of your ideas about building an emergency fund? Do you have a budget?
I do, I
Okay.
do now, I do
Okay.
now.
Okay.
I take $200 out of what I've got extra,
Uh-huh.
and take it out of the bank, and I give it to somebody to hold on to it for me.
That's great, that's great, and that's your emergency fund.
That is emergency, great.
I've got somebody that I trust with all my business.
Well,
Emergency fund?
Yeah.
You know what an emergency fund is?
yeah.
Huh?
Well, how's some of the ways to increase our emergency fund?
I'm not eating out all the time like we eat out. I'm not going to buy clothes all the time.
So that's little by little, we increase our emergency fund.
Yeah. Yeah. That was hard. Yeah, but it's true, it's true.
Tom, you got any ideas about building an emergency fund?
Sacrifice what you can.
Sacrifice what you can.
And sacrifice what others say.
So anything over your budget, if you don't have the emergency fund already started, any excess in your budget can go into an emergency fund. And,
And just
sometimes there's not much to go around, so, especially if you're on a fixed income. I'm currently building an emergency fund in a separate location from my checking account. Now, I normally use my checking account as an emergency fund, but I started in the last couple of months, starting to build a separate one. So that way, it's there, and of course, a checking account is an emergency fund also. You know, if you got excess in your checking account, but you can have it someplace else, like a credit union, a bank, and so forth. And, you know, just other than your regular checking account. And savings account at your bank, which don't pay much, a terrible investment, but it's good for emergency fund. And I don't like holding a lot of money in a savings account, but it is an emergency fund. And I'll let you go ahead and start presenting if you want to.
All right. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that. Let's say thank you all for coming tonight, and also want to thank our folks that are watching us online. The title of this talk tonight is How to Build an Emergency Fund. And what I'm going to try to do is to kind of take the best of what's out there, what I've been able to read and kind of surmise together. And I wanted to talk to you all about what most people, most experts in this area say about an emergency fund. First of all, what it is, and second of all, how you do it. Okay? So somebody says, emergency fund, that sounds pretty highfalutin. I can barely afford to go to McDonald's. I can barely keep my lights on. How on earth can I think about some big pile of money? How much are we even talking about anyway? Those are the kind of questions that we're going to try to take on tonight. So first of all, let's start with the mindset. What should you be thinking when I say emergency fund? Now, first of all, as Randy alluded to a second ago, I think that we should think of an emergency fund as an insurance policy, okay? So an emergency fund is not something that's supposed to make you money. That's an investment, okay? So I'm going to go put money in the stock market on a certain business, and I'm going to ask that it make money for me over the long run. That's an investment. That's making money above and beyond what you put in it. Emergency funds don't do that. Because first of all, wherever your emergency fund is, you need to be able to get to it very, very fast. Because, that's right, you have an emergency. That's right, something really went wrong. So you don't want to wait for a whole bunch of time to go break a CD, wait till it matures, because you've got to fix that tire right now or get a new set of tires. So you want to have an emergency fund that is at a place where you can get it for an emergency, okay? All right, so speed is what we're talking about, to be able to go ahead and put your hands on it right away, okay? The purpose of an emergency fund is to save you from a disaster or to save you from a catastrophe. That's what an emergency is. So, mindset. What is an emergency fund? It's where I go and get money when I have an emergency. Okay? 911, you don't want them to put you on hold, do you? 911, please hold. Then you hear some music in the background. 911 is open between the hours of 9 and 5, Monday through Friday. No. You want them to answer all the time, because if you have an emergency, you need help right then. And that's the kind of the way that you think about an emergency fund. It's emergency money to pay an emergency bill. Good. All right. So now, if you're into this whole outline thing, I'm moving on to Roman numeral 2. And what's written here is that the emergency fund is not to make money, as we said a minute ago. It's not to park money, and it's not an investment. Now, this is kind of a repeat of what I said a few minutes ago, but just try to think in terms of this, that when you have a pile of money that you can go and get your hands on, you want to get it in case of an emergency, but you don't want to make it too easy on yourself. Right. So if you have, say, all of your money at SunTrust, and you do online banking, and you can get online and you can switch money from one account to the other, if you are a person who really has trouble with discipline, and you're not able to keep yourself from swapping money from one account to the other, you probably want to make it a little bit harder for you to get to your emergency money, okay? Because an emergency money is not everyday money. It's not pocket money. It's not spending money. It's just to save you in the event of a catastrophe, right? Right, okay. All right. So now, an emergency fund. Here's some other names for it. A rainy day fund or a savings account. Now, you know what a savings account is, right? That's one of those things that none of us have, but we know we should. Now, hopefully you have one. But yeah, a savings account. Somebody goes, savings account, because a lot of us, the way that we think about money is we just put everything in a checking account and we just spend it as we need it, okay? But we don't do that anymore, do we? No, because you went through the budgeting class and you know that you need to have a place, a way to put money where you need to put money, right? You don't want it to just go whenever or wherever, right? So think of this as a savings account, a rainy day fund, an emergency fund, so that you're able to go to it when you need it, but keep yourself away from it when you don't need it but want it. Everybody got that? Okay. So now, how many of y'all are real disciplined people? Don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. How many of y'all are spendthrifts? Don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. All right. So if you have those tendencies to spend on impulse, okay? If you've eaten 5 of these Reese's peanut butter cups already, all right, you have a problem with impulse control because you know you're not supposed to have that many, right? Right. Okay. All right. So if you have a problem with impulse in one area, you might have problems with impulse in another area. So I've got to ask you tonight, what's your impulse quotient? How often do you find yourself driven to go do something that you haven't planned to do? Okay. Here's a good example. Surfing on television channels. Just sit there and go and go and go and go and go. Okay. It's almost like fidgeting. You know those little fidget spinners that were popular a few years ago? Just impulsive behavior, repetitive behavior. Okay. If you are a person that's developing discipline and you're making sure that you do what needs to get done when it needs to get done in the course of a day, then you can begin to trust yourself and put an emergency fund a little bit closer to home or where you can get your hands on it just a little bit quicker. All right, let me see. What else do we have here? Okay, so now, without an emergency fund, if we don't have any, talking to somebody that doesn't have one at all, we really get an emergency mindset. Now, here's how this works. You know that you don't have a lot of money, right? You know that you have a lot of bills, right? Yeah, that is you. You have a lot of bills. Okay, so there's a lot of demands for your money, and knowing that there's no safety net, that there's no margin, means that you're always thinking, oh no, what if it happens? Okay? Here's the thing. You know that it will happen. You're going to lose a job. You're going to break an arm. You're going to have car trouble. Something's going to happen. You're going to have a problem. You're going to have a difficult. Yeah, you're going to have some kind of thing that comes up, and you will, in that moment, think, where on earth did that come from? When I had my first car wreck, yeah, I thought, how did that happen? That never happens to me. When I had my second car wreck, I thought, man, I tell you, that's 2 in a row. I really hate that. When I had my 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I just said, when the semi came and plowed through the back of my car, I was just like, no, not again, this can't happen. Then I began to realize, hey, this can happen to me. After the 6th time, you begin to go, ding, 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 there we go. Yeah, it can happen to me. Okay, so an emergency mindset is somebody that carries the dread of those kind of catastrophes around with them all the time. You're always wondering, if I have a car that goes out, I don't know what I'll do. And then your car goes out and you still don't know what you're going to do. When you have some margin, when you have a safety net, when you have some money in the bank that you can go to, then it removes all of that stress. And you become a much more peaceful person, and you can go to bed at night not haunted by the terrible what ifs. Very good, that's right. All right, so now, there are some ways to motivate ourselves and to stay on the task of building an emergency fund. If you begin to go about the business of building up a fund, you might need a friend, okay? So now some people tell us that if you could find a partner, almost think like a prayer partner, only this would be an emergency fund partner, and you got into a game or a competition of saving money, you might be much more likely to be able to save money. You can have like the $1,000, or let's start with the $100 club, all right? So which one of you or Geraldine, can save $100 first? You or Geraldine? Yvonne, you going to take her on? You heard what she said about you. She can save money faster than you. Don't let her get away with that. Yeah. Saving $100. Right. It's somebody that you can talk to and just say, you know what? I can't find a way to save that last $20 this month. And she comes up with something that is like an idea from heaven. You never would have thought of that. And you put it into effect, and it works for you too. Land sakes, now you, between the two of you, you've saved $200 in 1 month. Who would have thought that? Okay. Ways to fire yourself up. Y'all ever get excited about anything besides my preaching? Oh, Just messing around, just messing. So you, if you can find a person to excite you, to get excited about saving money, cutting expenses, being able to build up a nest egg, that would be a great thing to do. Just ask somebody else, well, what on earth, how would you do this? How can I find cheaper peanut butter? How can I, and the questions are endless. The tasks are everlasting. You can always find out something, okay? All right, so now what we want to do is let's move to Roman numeral 4 here, and we're going to talk about actually how to build an emergency fund, and this is where we'll spend most of our time, okay? Now, we said, first of all, that you want to get into an emergency fund mindset, and that is if you accomplish anything over the next 6 months, you are going to build a nest egg, a savings account, okay? So now, are you going to build a savings account? The answer is yes, Pastor Kelly, I will. Okay. Are you going to build a savings account? Yes, I will, okay? Was there any part, any voice that tried to creep into your head that said, you can't do this? You cast that devil out. Yes, you can. If you only save a dime, at least you saved a dime. If you only save $10, at least you saved $10. That's just 10 times as much as what I mentioned a moment ago. If you saved, that was going to be 100 times. If you only saved $50, now we're talking about some money. I'll get somebody's attention. $50. Then you've saved $50. Are you going to save? Yes, because you are a saver, or at least you are now. Okay, good. All right. So now, first of all, we want to try to figure out how we could cut our expenses. Now, this is the hard part, because I don't want to cut my expenses. I like my expenses very much, right? The stuff that I think I need, the stuff that I wanted, the things that I think I need, those are all reflected in what I spend. But if you had to, what could you cut? What could you give up without causing yourself to be hungry or live in the street or not have anything to wear? Think about your expenses now. What could you do without? If you didn't have anything to spend, what could you cut? If you wanted to make a game out of this for the next 3 months, how could you win the game? What could you find to cut? So what I want to do over the next few minutes is I want to try to give you some ideas. This is how, and we're talking austerity here, right? Some of you may not have to do this, but if you want to do this, or if you have to do this, this is what you do. All right, very good. Okay, so we are going to keep telling ourselves that this emergency fund is going to be a journey. It's going to be an adventure. It's not going to be a beating. It's not going to be a shakedown. You're not going to be miserable. You're going to get into this. Like working out or losing weight or almost anything to get you excited. This is new. You don't usually do this, but you do this now. And so you begin to get into it. You begin to get intoxicated by the amount of money that you're saving. Okay? We are going to see this as you building a big safety net under your finances. Okay? Safety net. So if you are a trapeze artist and you're way up on a cord, you would like to see a safety net, right? Sorry, no, Burl, we don't have one for you today. It's in the cleaners. No. You get that thing out and you put it up now. You want a safety net under your finances, don't you? Yes, you do. Of course you do. Okay. So first of all, excuse me, let's figure out how much you need to survive. Okay. So the way that we'll do this is first of all, think about your bottom line expenses. Okay. So I did this today. And what I started with was I looked at at all the bills that go out every month. And I said to myself, what do I have to have here? Well, first of all was the mortgage payment, okay, or the house payment. Okay. So you got to pay that, right? Yeah, they hate it when you don't. Okay, then utilities. Yeah, then utilities. And then whatever thing I had to have. Everything else could be cut. It was amazing how much I didn't have to have. How much I had to have, it didn't seem like that much. Okay? So there are lots of things that I could cut. What could you cut if you decided to? man, I can't cut that. I wouldn't know what to do with my time. You know, I think you'd probably survive. If you had to, if there was no money to pay that bill, you probably would be able to. We're talking about operating expenses, not what I'd like to have expenses. How much does it cost you to exist, not live? Yeah. Are you more, or do you think in terms of the high cost of living or the high cost of existing? Because the cost of existing is less than the cost of living. Okay? Could you live in a smaller one? Or could you eat a less expensive one? Or could you go to a less further away one? What would you do if you had to do it? Now, first of all, you want to be realistic, right? You don't want to make yourself, you don't want to tell yourself that you could get by on $10 a month, because that's not going to happen, right? You can't do that, right? Can't exist on that. So you want to be realistic, but you want to make sure that when you have your emergency fund money, that you put it, as I said before, in a way that's kind of far away from what you spend every day. Here's a phrase I want to give you: stay liquid. You want to make sure that your emergency fund is not tied up someplace where you can't get to it. And you want to consider a separate bank account, okay? So somebody has a large bank account of, say, $1,000, okay? And they have emergency fund of $5,000, okay? All right, big numbers, I know. But don't you just want to keep all that together in one fund of $600? It's so much easier. No, because I'll spend it, buddy. If it's there, oh, I'll pay this back soon. No, you won't. Probably not, okay? Because an emergency will come up. That's what happens to you when you don't plan, okay? All right, so you are going to put this money away. So here are some options. There is such a thing nowadays as online banks. And you can go to these online banks, and the names of some of these are on your study sheet. But you can go and you can actually earn interest on your checking account, usually more than you can get at a brick and mortar bank. So I keep using SunTrust as an example because that's my bank. SunTrust is in a building, okay? And they're inside of Gacy, but they have to pay for that building and many more buildings like it. And then they have all the internet stuff. And then you need to keep some money in the bank if you are a bank, right, to be able to handle expenses. So it's a big corporation. Yeah, it's soon going to get much, much bigger, all right? So it merged with another bank. So anyway, they are not able to offer as good a terms as far as money back. So the interest on your checking account is going to be small. But with something like Ally, which is an online bank, you can get over 2% back, okay? All right, so now the thing is, what you do is you type in your web browser, Ally Bank, and you go on there, and what you discover is that you can open up an account and not put money in it. Isn't that great? You can have a balance of zero, okay? But within 60 days, you've got to make a balance of some kind into a checking account. If not, they're going to close down the account and you have to start all over again, okay? But that is an idea. If you don't have to have a bank teller to go look at, you can check out something like that. There's also Capital One 360. Now, this is probably less than 2%. No, it's right at 2% when I checked last. But you can go on there, another online bank where you can go and check that out. Now, some people will even come up with more highfalutin vehicles than that, like a Roth IRA, okay? This is very, very complicated, and you've got to check on that and make sure that that's for you. But I put this in there to illustrate that if you play the rules right, and if it's for you, you can make money, okay? But you got to make sure that you, for example, with the Roth IRA, as I understand it, you can only pull out early what you put in. You can't pull out interest, okay? So just the point of this is just be aware if you do anything else kind of besides an online bank or a brick and mortar bank, your local bank, make sure that you check the fine print, okay? And then you can try a certificate of deposit, the old CDs. How many of y'all have ever had one of those, okay? So you put money in, right? And you say, I want you to lock this up and put it in a drawer. Not really, but that's kind of the idea. For 6 months or a year or 2 years, okay? All right, so let's say that it is a certificate of deposit that you can get out in just a few months. You're not going to make a lot of interest, but you'll make some. Just parenthetically here, you want to make more than the rate of inflation, okay? But anyway, let's say that you decide that you're going to put it in there for a year or more. Then you'll get more interest back, but you can't take it out early or you'll lose a lot of money, okay? So if you can afford to let her ride, somebody say let her ride. If you can afford to let her ride, then you might think about a CD because it will give you a higher rate of return than a checking account. And then finally, there is your bank, like SunTrust for me. You can just go in there and say, walk up to your friendly bank teller, Wilma, say, Wilma, I want you to put this right here in my savings account. You can always get it. You can go online. Don't ever touch it unless you have to, but you can keep it there and all will be well with the world and you'll be a happy soul. Okay? Do I have any happy souls here tonight? Very good. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay. So now, you're asking yourself, Pastor Kelly, how long would it take me to build an emergency fund? Now, let's play with this. All right. How long would it take me? Okay. First of all, we need to ask ourselves, how big a one do you need? Okay. Now, instead of just saying, I'd like to have an emergency fund of $5,000, let's try to think about it a little bit more. Okay. Now, what I'd like to tell you, first of all, is that it would be cool if you had an emergency fund that was as big as you could afford. Okay? Aren't you glad you came tonight? Talk about specific answers. Okay. Now, number one, first of all, $1,000. If you could have $1,000 in the bank in an emergency fund, as a first step, I would come up and shake your hand. I would, free. I'd shake your hand. $1,000. $1,000, Pastor Kelly, what do you think this is? Okay, how about $100? $100, and I'd shake a finger. Oh, no, that's 1,000. That'll cost you 1,000, sister. All right. Okay, $100 and $1,000. Okay, then after your $1,000, $100 and $1,000, then you're going to go for, watch this, you'll love this, 3 months of living expenses stripped down. What do you mean stripped down? That is with all of that extra stuff. How much would it cost you to exist? 3 months. Okay. Then after 3 months, 6 months. Yeah? Now we're talking. You get fired, you get canned. Now you got some stuff to draw on for 6 months, right? Then a year. Okay? Now at this point, most of us, our heads are swimming. A year. What you want to do is take out how much, or figure out how much it costs you to exist for a year, and then save that much money. Now, if you can do more than that, once you get wealthy, you might want to build it up to 24 months, 16 months, then 24 months, 2 years, and man, you're golden. You know, you can retire 2 years early if you want to. No, really, don't do that. But anyway, you could have all the emergency fund you want to, but first of all, think about building up toward a year. That would be golden. A year, okay? Any questions about that? Okay, so let's think of it in terms of this. So let's say that you wanted to build a 3-month emergency fund at $6,000. So you figure up paying all of your bills, live in meager, right? What does it cost you to exist? Then you go in and you discover that you've got $1,000 left over because you hadn't spent it on nothing except what you had to. Then it will take you 3 months to build up an emergency fund of $6,000. See how easy that was? You did it already, just in a second. Or at least you thought your way through it. Okay, so that is the way you want to think about it. That is those are the beginning thoughts that you want to be able to put into your head and act on. Okay? I will have an emergency fund. I will pay all my bills, and I will save what is left over. If I don't have an emergency fund, I'm going to declare, this is you saying this, I'm going to declare myself to be in a state of emergency. And you start doing whatever it takes to try to build up that emergency fund, first for $100, then for $1,000, then for 3 months, then for 6 months, then for 12 months. Okay, good. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to talk about some ways that you can save money. Okay, first of all, you can cut down on your cell phone plan. Okay, so now, do you need a smartphone? You have to have one to survive, to exist. Could you use a cell phone? Maybe with a flip phone rather, with a free airtime plan or talk plan. Could you do that? Okay, good. All right. So you've just saved yourself a buku of money. All right. What about this? Could you downgrade your internet package? Okay. Could you cut cable and satellite altogether? Cut the cord. Could you do that? To exist.
To exist, yes.
Could you move to a place that's cheaper than where you live now?
No.
Okay, now somebody is leasing an apartment or they're renting an apartment. Do you have to live in that place? Could you move to something? I know that it doesn't look good, but if you had to, could you do that temporarily to save money? Okay, could you do that to build an emergency fund? Okay, you want to take a look at what you can sacrifice. Okay, now we've cut our expenses. Now we want to think about how could we increase our income, because that's the flip side of how to get an emergency fund built, right? Okay, so you don't have an emergency fund, you know that you really need one. So now we're going to think about how you could actually earn more money. Okay, how's this? First of all, I want to start with the most obvious. You have, if you have a job, you have a certain value to your company. Okay, so they may not remember what you're worth. Okay, really, you can do some things that nobody else can do. But here's the thing about companies: after a while, they forget what they've got. Okay. And they'll go around and they'll look and they'll go around and they'll look for everything in the world and not realize that it's right there already on their payroll. So a long time ago, I was working at this church and they wanted to do, this was back in the days of audio cassettes, they wanted to do a cassette they gave away to visitors to introduce the church. And so the pastor had in mind that he wanted to hire this guy to come in and do a voiceover job. And it was a guy that worked at Lee University. He's going to get him to come in. He really liked his voice. And so he decided he was going to pitch this to the church council. And so he took it to him and had a vote. And then someone said, sorry, this is self-serving, but it's my story, okay? They said, no, the new youth pastor that we hired, let's use him. You know what? Did they like me? Maybe they did, but I was free. Yeah? I was already on payroll. They didn't have to pay me. Now that's thinking. So I got the job. I got to do that. And most importantly, they didn't have to pay for it, right? So they cut an expense, So the pastor forgot, he was the guy that hired me, but he forgot that there was another option other than going out and hiring it done. Okay. So, and it was, it was an okay project. It was an okay project. All right. So you want to make sure that you are trading on the value to your company. Okay. If you believe that you bring more value to your company than they are paying for, then you've got to find a way to remind them. How many of y'all have ever heard of a raise? How many of y'all have ever asked for one? It's amazing. I had somebody I was working with one time, and I said, why don't you just go and ask for a raise? Never thought of such a thing. No. They were waiting for somebody to come to them and go, would you please take a raise? How many of y'all really think a company's going to do that? I mean, almost never. They're going to make you work as cheap as they can get you for as long as they can, right? Okay? Just hoping that you'll never walk. Yeah. And then when, if you go somewhere else and interview and they make you an offer and you come back to your company that you work with now and you say, hey, these guys over here want to hire me at X amount of money, then your company goes, wow, we haven't given you a raise. We need to do that, don't we? And you're going, yes, sir. So you want to make sure that if you are due a raise, that you ask for one. Now, if you never go to work on time, don't do this, okay? Really don't. Yeah, put this one off till you've raised your stock a little bit, okay? But if you are due, then you might want to ask one. All right, let's go on. Would it be possible that you could go to another company that is at least along the lines of the company you work for now, okay? Somebody said that you can get somewhere, I think it was like a 4% increase on average when you change companies, okay? So sometimes a competitor will hire you away at more. Just want to make sure that you're not increasing your living expenses. So then you'll go in the hole. All right. So now let's talk about some other things. What could you do? How many of y'all have ever gotten a tax refund? Wouldn't it be nice if you got the money the government to send you money? Now they're not really giving you free money. They're really just giving you back a low interest loan or a no interest loan that you gave to them all through the year. But let's say that you get one back. So you decide that you are not going to spend it. Not going to go to Disney World this year. Not going to do it, okay? Instead, you're going to put it in your emergency fund. And you will find the pain of doing all this just existing budget much less hurtful. because you have used your tax refund to do something that's very fundamental to your finances, and that is build a safety net. Okay. Then finally, well, this is actually the next to last thing. Are there some things in your house that you could sell, or some things that you own that you could sell? Okay, I'm not just talking about a garage sale, you know, all the old dresses that you used to wear, but I mean some stuff that you have that you know it's not bringing you any enjoyment. You're never gonna put those skis on again. You know, you really don't like to jet ski. You don't really like to camp anymore. Okay, so you just decide you're going to take that thing and sell it. Then you take that money and you don't lose it. It doesn't go down a black hole somewhere, but you put it in an emergency fund. Okay, and then finally, how about this? Here's a novel idea. Are you good at anything? No, really, I mean anything at all. Okay, and I'm not talking about your job. I'm talking about about hobbies. Okay, turkey shoots. Okay, frisbee. No, those are the silly ones. What about hunting? What about music? What about piano? What about guitar? Could you be a tutor to somebody? Because what we discover is that there are all kinds of people that want to pick up new skills. A lot of them will not stay with it, but they want to try it out to see if they like it. Okay? Can you turn that into an opportunity to get some money to put in an emergency fund? Okay, let's stop with are you good at anything? Do you like anything? Okay, the chance of, I can see that. Ellen's Quilting School. Yeah. And you could actually teach some people to do those skills and have fun. You'd enjoy it. In your own house, no gas expense, they come to you. Okay? All right. So all of these are intended to be thought starters for you so that you could actually sit down with this outline and just go through it. Go through all of the steps in it and just ask, can I pull this off? Can I pull this off? Okay? It's no fun to have to dump expenses. It's no fun to just exist. But remember, you don't do this forever. You don't just exist forever. You do this in a pinch because without an emergency fund, you're in a state of emergency. And once you do this, you know that it's done. Good news? Good plan. God bless you. Good luck. All right. I'm going to turn off the video. Thank you so much for coming and watching tonight. And please watch us for additional videos in the future.